In this tutorial, we're continuing with our register form, and we're going to insert the user into the database this time. So let's just create a new user here, Jane Doe, and we'll give her a country like Cuba, and let's give her a password of password, and let's click register, and you'll see here it says thanks for registering Jane. So what we did here is we validated her and we inserted her into the database, and then we give this confirmation message and we just grab her name and show that there. If we go back to our database here and I click browse again, you'll see she was added to the database right here. For the password, we're using the SHA-1 password hash, and I'm also concatenating on assault to that before I hash it, just to make it a bit harder if somebody didn't put in a very secure password. We're going to make it a bit tougher for hackers to decrypt if they got access to our database. So let's go over to the code here, and in the last video we talked about all of this stuff. If all of the validation checked out, we're going to go down to this else block here, and the first thing we're going to do is load in our model user model. And from a project I worked on before, there was sort of a naming conventions, which all of the models we had model underscore in front, and then all of the views we had view underscore from. So I just sort of got used to that, and I'm going to keep using that in this project. So we're loading in this model user, so we can go take a look at that. The models are all going to be stored in the models folder, and then you're going to create it here like model underscore user.php. So when you load it in here, you just put it like that without the .php, and we can see that right here. Class model user extends CI model, and then we can put all of our methods inside here. Let's just go back to our register thing here, and after we load that in, we're going to call a method of it. So this model user and then insert user, and whatever is returned from this, we're going to store it in this result variable right here. So this insert user, it doesn't need to be passed anything. We can go over to model user right here, and here's our function right here. And basically the reason we don't need to pass it anything is because it already can access what it needs from our post variable. And the way you access the global post array in CodeIgniter is using this input post, and then we're just putting in those the names of all these things. These are the same as what we had in our register form here for the name values, first name, last name. So when they're in the post array in CodeIgniter, you can grab them like this, and basically we're just storing them in our own variables here, so they're a bit easier to work with. And for the password, you can see what I did here. We're running the SHA-1 password hash on the salt, and then we're concatenating on the password after that. The salt, I've put in the config file. So if we go in the config folder and then we go into config.php, you'll see I've added this bit right here, and the salt is just some random characters right here. But we can't change these later because it's going to salt the passwords, and in order for us to check what the passwords are, if when the user logs in, is the password they're using, is that matching up with what we have in the database. So we're not going to be able to change this in the future. This isn't industrial strength password protection, but I think for our pretty simple website here, it's going to be good enough for now. So let's go back over to our model here, and we can access all of those variables in that config.php using this and then arrow config and then item, and then we pass in whatever it was. So config here, you'll see that the config is an associative array, and we have salt right here. So when we want to access it, we just use config item, and then we pass that key in right there. And then we're concatenating on the password that they put in, and then we run SHA-1 on all of that, and that gets stored in the password variable. After that, we're going to start building up our SQL here. So we have just a regular Sql insert statement here, insert into users, and these are the fields we're going to be inserting into. And then what we're going to insert in them is all of the values here. And for first name, last name, or country, because these could have like single quotation marks in them or double quotation marks, which could cause problems in our SQL. Basically, it's going to end this, the statement. we're going to use this db escape on it. So what that's going to do is wherever we have a single quotation mark, it's going to escape that. And that is how we want all of our, our strings in the database. We want them to be escaped. So this function is going to do that escaping for you. And then just go back here. I'm not sure what happened. Actually close that. Let's go into our models and model user. And but for email and password, I know there's not going to be any of that stuff in email, so I didn't use it here, and we don't need it for the password either. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to run this SQL here. So we use this DB query, which is going to run the query on the database. And we're going to, what is going to get returned by this? Well, if we have a successful write to the database, it's going to return true to this result right here. And if it wasn't a successful write to the database, it's going to return false here. And another way that we can check if we had a successful write to the database or not is we can check this DB affected rows, another CodeIgniter method. And we're only creating one user at a time, so this affected row, this should be identical to 1. So I'm doing a check for that right here. And if that was identical to 1, we changed one row, we added one user, then I'm going to return the first name. And the reason why I wanted to return the first name was you saw here that we're just adding their name there, just making it a bit more user-friendly. And, that's just the way I decided to do this. And I've managed to close that again. I can't believe it. Okay, so we're back here. And, really there should be never any problem inserting a user into the database here, because we did all of that validation beforehand, before we're, getting to calling this method here. So there shouldn't be any problems. But if there was for whatever reason, then I definitely want to know about it as the administrator of this website. So what I did down here is in this else block right here, I'm loading in the email library class, or the email class here. And then I'm just constructing a basic email here from to, and the subject is problem inserting the user into the database. And if the email was set, then I'm just saying unable to register the user with this email to the database, or else, unable to register and insert user into the database. And then I'm going to get notified by email that, something is haywire with my registration thing here, rather than it, failing silently and I'm not knowing, what's going wrong. I think the only reason, why this would fail is if there's something wrong with our database, it was offline. But then because our site is using a database, like I believe it's inside the config file, and there's something in here that says if we're using a database or not. Here we have, well, that's says use database, but inside, database.php, we are using a database here. And if our database was down, on any page loading CodeIgniter, our website is going to get an error on every single page, because we have our site configured to use a database. Like for example, our sessions, we're using sessions, and the session is supposed to use the database. So I happen to know that if our database was down, we're going to get an error on every single page. So we're definitely going to know about that. Let's just go back to our model right here, and we just send the email right there. But basically 100% of the time this is going to work, and we're going to return the first name here, and we can go back over to our controller here. So we know that result is getting the first name here, and then if result, so if the name was whatever, if it was Harry, Harry is going to be a truthy value. So if we passed a string in here and it's not an empty string, then it's going to evaluate to true. And then we're going to go into this right here, and then we just load in our view here, view success, but we're going to pass it an associative array, and we're going to pass it this first name, and the value of first name is going to be right here. Now when you pass variables in CodeIgniter, when we pass it an array like this first name, this thing we're passing is going to be accessible inside the view using $first name. Okay, so it's just like the extract function in PHP. We're going to access it with a $sign there, and we can open up that view right here, and you can see what I have here. Echo thanks for registering, and then just like I said, the $first name, and we let them know that they registered successfully.